Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line of the final score. Bryan Hayes, Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jason Strudwick in here. We've got our boy JD, James Duthie, coming up here in a few moments. He got out and played 14 holes earlier this week, 14 holes of golf. Yeah, I guess it was just crazy. Somewhere out in Hamilton or around the Hamilton area, and it was so busy. They packed the sheet so busy that they only got through like 14 holes in like 14 and a half hours or 4.5 hours. But
it was so busy in March.
That's what it was. Jeez. That's how it was expressed to me, that this place was basically every 3 minutes someone was teeing off. And why wouldn't you? If you're going to open, you might as well do it because you know you're going to make money.
When do you guys allow to golf out in Edmonton, Struddy? August 1st opens up?
Pretty small window, but we go for quality over quantity, right? So April 15th, I'll get the wrenches out, start swinging them around.
Okay. All right.
I'll tell you what, guys, I will say one thing. We'd kid around about it, but people out west are tough, man. I was out there for the World Juniors that ultimately got canceled in December, and I asked someone at the hotel, like, my wife was with me, and I said, what could we do, like, during the day? And she's like, well, it was minus 40. And she's like, well, there's some outdoor art festivals, like, not too far away. And I said, outdoor art festival? She's like, yeah, you can go skating. There's lights and different displays, all outdoors. I said, there's no way in hell I'm going outside. No way.
No.
And it was just like standard business. It was the coldest I've ever been in my life.
Right. You're like,
Really?
Is there a path system out here in Edmonton that I can use to get around?
Yeah. Yeah, we do. They're called sidewalks.
Yeah. We go underground here, man. We have tunnels in Toronto. That's how we operate.
Like rats.
Yeah.
Underground.
We'll do it. It's a rat race in Toronto.
Come see some sun.
Yeah. Well, Leafs Sabres tonight. We've got Leafs Sabres tonight, Leafs Bruins tomorrow. And, again, there's been a number of trades already in the NHL today. It feels like Friday. It feels like a trade deadline day because of what's been happening, where the Oilers, they acquired Adam Henrique, Sam Carrick, and a 7th-rounder in 2024 from Anaheim in exchange for their first-rounder this year and a conditional pick, a 5th-rounder in 2025. Ottawa traded Vladimir Tarasenko to Florida in exchange for a 3rd-round pick in 25 and a conditional 4th-round pick in 24. Sean Walker is on his way from Philly to Colorado. Bowen Byram on his way from Colorado to Buffalo for Casey Middlestat going the other way. Alex Wenberg on his way to the Rangers. Like there's been a lot of activity today, and the trade bait board will get Duthie's take on this, but it is slowly but surely starting to erase names. But Hannafin's still there.
You can't move the date back, Hayes. It's like, well, maybe we should do it. Then they'll just do it earlier.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It happens this way every year. Big trades happen well before the deadline every year, but the big names are still there in Hannafin, Gensel, Markstrom if he gets dealt. The 3 biggest impact players that are available and have been available this whole time are Gensel, Hannafin, Markstrom, and as of now, they're still on their respective teams, and Calgary's playing tonight, and I believe, Hannafin's ready to go. Markstrom, I don't know if he's starting tonight or not, but as of now,
Markstrom gets out of there, Struddy. What's your vibe out in Alberta?
Man, it's tough. It's one thing to trade a couple teammates, another to trade the guy who's been the MVP for your team and has really helped you kind of get to the point where you're fighting for a playoff spot. If you trade him, you're basically cashing your chips for this year's playoff run, and that's with all due respect to Wolf and Vladar, the other 2 goalies. But part of me feels like he's playing really well. Is his value going to be any higher than it is right now? But
Struddy, if they all play good, if they play really well, what do you think the chances? Like if they play good down the stretch, what do you think the chances of Calgary getting? I don't think they're getting in.
They're not getting in.
No,
it doesn't seem likely.
But the message, what's the message you're sending to your team? So then just give up and ride it out, like that. First-year head coach Ryan Huska's done a pretty good job getting to where they are. I think I personally would make the trade if it's there. And then you just start over in the summer. They've got some good young players that are playing pretty well. Hannafin deal, TBD, what they get back. And then Markstrom, I'm guessing, will be pretty decent return. So you're kind of retooling, rebuilding, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, those are the biggest assets they have. Lindholm was a big one. They got a fair amount. Obviously, Kuzmenko a 1st and others in that deal. Zadorov, I think it was a 3rd and a 5th. Tanev a 2nd and a prospect. But Hannafin, and Markstrom have got to bring back a lot. And then I would suggest if you're going to go that far, no one's taking Huberdeau, obviously, so you're probably stuck with that right now. But why not Kadri? Why not Coleman? Like that's what they have to determine. Is this a retool where you want to keep some vets around and try to be still competitive in the next 2 or 3 years? Or is it down to the studs and you're potentially going to be awful for 2 or 3 years and you're basically chasing whoever the next Bedard's going to be? I'm not sure they've made that determination, but if Markstrom goes, that's going to take a real hit on them in terms of wins and losses. I mean, we all know the importance of that position. All right, so the trade bait board has been drastically affected today, but there's still some big names, and the trade bait board is still going to be alive and well come Friday morning when we kick off TradeCentre. Here's the host of TradeCentre, absolutely, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's James Duthie. How you doing, JD?
Had better days.
Yeah? This one hurts?
No.
Call it bid piece. Call it bid piece Friday.
I feel like I got punked a little bit this year because let's be real. It's been this way for a while now. Probably, for the better part of the last decade, the GMs have sort of wised up and made their deals early. But usually it's, 2 weeks early. There'll be a day, 10 days before the deadline where there's suddenly 6 deals and a bunch of big names go. This year, it was because I think of the bottleneck of some teams trying to decide if they were in and out and so on and so forth. It lasted a little bit longer, but then you get to this point, you're 48 hours to the deadline, and I start to get this false hope that maybe it's going to be this dream scenario from a TV perspective where everything happens on the last day. And then when the first one happened this morning, I knew it was pretty much over.
Yeah, and it's happened quickly here, JD. I mean, of the deals that have happened, we're talking Canadian teams as well. Edmonton made a deal for Henrique and Carrick, and Tarasenko is out in Ottawa for picks. So you've got some Canadian content here. We were just talking about Calgary. We're bracing for them to do something. But, as you line up where we're going to go on Friday, obviously we're going to hit all 7 Canadian markets. But it feels like the Oilers, the last couple of years, because of McDavid, because of their expectations, and now they've made this move where they're basically telling the world, we believe in this team, as I believe they should. Do you expect they take up a lot of oxygen on Friday in terms of the whole bigger picture cup conversation?
If we have 9 hours, all 7 Canadian teams are going to get their oxygen.
Right, true, very true.
I would say this, it's all going to be fresh enough that we're good. Right?
Yeah,
those years where the trades happen early, it feels stale talking about them. But we're in this window now where this is the first time we're going to all be together to talk about all these deals, right? So I think that once you get to this close, it's all going to still feel pretty fresh. Maybe we won't get, the breaking deals that you dream of on a trade center. I still think we'll get some. There's so many defined sellers this year and defined buyers that it may be a little bit of scraps. But look, last year felt like the deadest year ever, and there was still whatever it was, 20-something trades. A lot of them were minor league stuff, but I think, and Edmonton's worthy of that. That's a really good depth. To get 2 guys that can play center and that can go, I wouldn't say Carrick can move up and down your lineup, but Henrique can move up and down your lineup, and Carrick's a good depth piece. So I love the fact we have to submit, I'm sure you guys have done it, this top 5 Stanley Cup contenders. And I was really struggling this year because I think there's 10 basically that you can really shift in and shift out. And to narrow it down to 5, I think it's going to be some really, really interesting lists this year because I came up with 10 different lists that I thought were palatable, right? So the fact that all, this 10 or so legit cup contenders are all making moves, I think makes always for an interesting television show.
JD, I love Sidney Crosby. I loved watching him play. I didn't love playing against him. But it's hard to see a team he captains kind of floundering like they are right now.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a big kind of trade deadline in his career? Obviously not to load up, but maybe to unload, and the responsibility on the shoulders of former Leafs GM Kyle Dubas to do so.
It is. Well, I'm personally an old school guy. I'd like to see Crosby retire with the Penguins. But from a pure chaos perspective, the one thing the NHL lacks over something like the NBA gets, 6 prominent guys move every single year, it seems like. And the NHL just never has that. Rarely at a trade deadline do we see a superstar ever moving. Just for the sake of that, it would be fascinating if Crosby was somehow in play. I don't think there's any chance that he is. And I think Dubas is probably in one of the toughest spots of all GMs in the league because he committed to all these guys and the team's still really bad. And I don't know what you're going to do to build around. They're in a spot where they probably should be rebuilding, but you can't rebuild when you have all these guys on contracts for 3 more years, and you can't really. You owe it to Sidney Crosby to try to win, but yeah, I think that place is going to get messier this summer and probably into next year because I don't know what you can do. Frankly, you can't just nibble around the edges with depth pieces and hope suddenly you're a lot better next year. So I think if you were to rank GMs with tough jobs right now, and part of it's his problem, like he's the one who signed Karlsson and such, but he'd be probably number one on that list.
Jimmy, I think for 10 years straight you've said, "Oh, if this just happens today, it will save the day." Like, what's the 2024 version of that? Like, if blank happens on Friday, it'll save the day and make it for a fun day.
Well, okay. So, I mean, a simple one would be if Noah Hannafin lasts till the day, right? Because then you have a guy who's been number 1 or 2 on our list. And I think that's a possibility. Probably not. Probably happens tomorrow. If I was getting pie in the sky, I would say Sidney Crosby goes to Kyle Dubas and says, "I want to go to Colorado," or something. Then we got something, right? And I've always said that the thing doesn't have to happen. It just has to have the possibility of happening,
Okay.
Right? Like
that's, by the way, desperate. That's desperate.
That's desperate and horny.
That's both, man. There's a Venn diagram there, JD, and there's an overlapping, man.
I'm down at the Hockey Hall of Fame, and I was listening to you guys on the way down here. By the way, I cannot find I'm in the Great Hall, and I can't find the Strudwick or O-Dog bus anywhere, but I'll keep looking. So years ago, when Erik Karlsson was going to be traded from Ottawa, that was the closest thing we had to a superstar. Because remember then, that was just after, I think the year after they went to the almost to the Cup final, 1 goal away from going to the Cup final, and he was in the conversation for the best player in the league the way he played that year, and then suddenly he was going out, and I think that occupied our whole TradeCentre show. Right, it was a tantalizing possibility. Now he didn't end up getting traded until September to San Jose, but if you have one of those possibilities, but I don't see any of those on the list right now. But honestly, I gave up hoping for massive trades years ago on this thing, and I kind of just accepted it for what it is, which is like twice a year, basically. This and July 1st, we get everybody together. You get guys, like Johnny and O together on a panel, and Craig Button in the same studio, and you in there, Hazy B, and it's, there's enough that's happened. There's a ton to talk about.
Yeah.
And the producers, Mike Lane and Billy and Jeff, they've programmed Steve Dryden. They programmed an entire show. We could have 0 trades, and they have an entire show worth of filler ready to go. So we'll be fine. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. TradeCentre on Friday, and we're chatting with James Duthie. I just saw TSN Edge tweet out this courtesy of FanDuel with the odds, because obviously you mentioned, big deals, big players, and then there's big teams that create a lot of content. And the Maple Leafs would be at the forefront of that. And FanDuel, I guess, has the odds set at 1.5 total trades made on trade deadline day, and the under is paying -140. So I guess.
Sorry, say that again.
So
1.5 total?
1.5 total.
That's got to be by a team. That's by the Leafs.
That's by the Leafs on their own.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
This is the Maple Leafs. No.
That's the total word, big trouble.
The Maple Leafs by themselves on Friday, on trade deadline day, 1.5 is the total, and you got to pay juice on the under. So FanDuel, I don't know what they're hearing, but they're suggesting the Leafs may be kind of standing pat.
Right? Because if you were to go down and look at all the trades last year, there's always about 15 of them that are complete minor league deals, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody on the Marlies to somewhere else, and as long as the NHL counts it because it's an NHL-ish contract. So I don't know how FanDuel does that, but I would say, I don't know. I feel like 1 only myself for the Leafs on this. And just extra answer to your question of what would make it, O-Dog's question, but what would make it an enticing day. like the trade I think is the most interesting today is the Bowen Byram Casey Middlestat trade, because it's just a pure hockey trade that we don't see much on deadline. It's always the draft picks and the rentals and so on. And I think it was 2012. I'm not great at the years. Right at the deadline, Cody Hodgson was traded for Zach Kassian. And, in retrospect, that didn't seem like a big deal because both of their careers, Cody had the injuries and, Zach just sort of became a little bit of a journeyman. But at the time, they were first-round picks who were, likely to be impact players somewhat in the NHL. And I think you can say the same for Middlestat and Byram to an extent. So if you could get a couple more actual hockey trades, which there is a possibility of because there's teams that are pressed up against the cap that, have to have bodies moving out if they have bodies moving in. And to me, those make for, a much more fascinating discussion than even the rentals for the draft picks.
In the time you've done this, has there been a trade that came across the desk where even the insiders are like, wow, I can't believe this actually happened, or we didn't know this was going to happen?
Yeah, Struddy, you're going to put me on the spot because my memory is terrible. So I think that more happens on free agency day.
Okay.
Where you get somebody signs a contract and you go, what? Like how much? how much money? Jeff Finger signed with the Leafs for how much?
Yes.
What do you get,
that's
like
always the reference. It's always Jeff Finger, man. 3.5 a year.
Well, because the story of that day was, I think it happened during a commercial break that one of the insiders found it out. It's like Jeff Finger signs, whatever it was, 4 years.
$4 million.
4 million, 3.5 or whatever. And the guy goes, oh, that's a pretty good deal for the Leafs. That's total, right? And no, it's per year.
That one hurt.
So, I wish, and again, I think that goes back to somewhat of my, not criticism of the league, because it is what it is, and the insiders do a good job that every name study is pretty much out there already, so there's nothing that catches us off guard. But that would be, I'm sure there have been a couple, but there's never been a blockbuster, I don't think, on deadline day, at least in the last 15 years or something like that, where there's, 3 guys for 2 guys, and they're all prominent players. And that's the one thing that I wish the NHL could get to, because it does make it a lot more interesting for fans, and we're kind of in a fantasy age. And I would love to see that, but I don't think it's structured that way, really, with salary caps and so on right now.
Yeah, well, we were discussing that earlier, like the Tarasenko deal. That's a guy you're picking up on a 1-year deal. Obviously, Ottawa had visions of them being competitive and being a playoff team, and I'm sure they were assuming when they signed him, he would help them get there and play a prominent role in the playoffs. So they're just like, here,
right? That's like, to me, that's a Pierre Dorian mistake.
Yes.
And look, I don't pretend to know that maybe he wouldn't have come if he didn't get the full no move. But you have to, as a general manager, you have to have your plan B. Like, you think that you're going to be competitive next year and that Tarasenko will be a piece for you when you get to the playoffs and make your first run and whatever. But you have to also think that, especially a team that hasn't made the playoffs in forever, that it might not work. And you have to think of this guy as a piece at the deadline. And if he only wants to go one place, then that's not going to be much of a piece at the deadline. So, I mean, that's a whole other discussion, the whole no moves thing. I don't take, players deserve them. If they get them, I would take them too. But I think that's a mistake to get a guy who, on a short-term contract like that, who could end up being a rental, and give him that kind of control over where he goes, which completely, everyone's ripping the Sens right now, and Steve Stais, I don't think he really had a choice, because Tarasenko said, I'm going to Florida, and that's it. And so you do what you can, right? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, we've seen it countless times. I think Claude Giroux had a similar situation, albeit he was the captain of the Flyers and had been there forever. Obviously, he would be in a situation like that. Tarasenko played 60 games, and then he gets to control his, where he's going to go.
It gets, like I said, that's a whole other discussion. I don't know when it happened that no moves. There was somewhere in the, I think coming out of the lockout, or around 2010 or something, where they started to throw these things around like candy, and it makes it a lot more challenging when you get to a situation like this.
No, I think it was they used to do the caps circumventing long-term deals, and then those got eradicated, and the GMs got desperate, and they're like, "What else can we do? Well, we'll just give."
If I had a no
this.
trade or no movement, Hayes, I would put it in there, and I would let the GM know, like what's going on in Calgary with Markstrom. Don't ever bring it to my attention, ever. Like if that's what you signed, that's what you signed. Like don't ask me anything about this ever.
Torrey Krug did that, right?
What?
Krug did that in St. Louis. They had a deal made, Torrey Krug, and he's like, "No, I'm not interested. I'm not."
And I don't think the player should ever be blamed for that. I mean,
No.
that is in your contract, and you fought for that and earned it. Like I said, I think the mistake is that they just give them out way too freely.
But what if you're not wanted there? Like that's a hard part too.
That's true, Struddy. What the hell's the sense of staying?
You're like the unwanted guest at a party, right? You're like, geez, he's still here. We're trying to get rid of this guy.
Right.
Okay?
Elephant in the
I
room.
think I've never been that guy. I'm guessing some of you guys have been that before, but
Yeah, you're always wanted, Struddy. You're always welcome and always wanted. Spengler Cup, playing in Japan, wherever it happens to be, even all over the world. All right, JD, well, what do we got here? Less than 48 hours.
I have heard through the grapevine. I had a little pre-meeting. I don't know why you guys don't have to go to the 2-hour pre-meetings, but I had a meeting yesterday where, it's kind of like the meetings they have for shows. You ever see those things pop up on your social media feeds where they, all the actors are there and they do run-throughs of the script where they read the script? That's what I had yesterday with, the director and the producers to kind of go through all the segments to make sure there wasn't too much ridiculous shtick and so on. And I did notice a segment in the show that uses a popular catchphrase from your program.
Yeah.
And I was taken aback by the fact that the host of your program is going to have to use his catchphrase numerous times in the segment. So that is personally going to be the thing I'm looking forward to most tomorrow.
Yeah. You picked
I'm not
up on
gonna
that one.
deny?
Yeah, well, it's kind of it's a creative spin on that I'm familiar with what you're saying, JD. You and I are on the same page.
Let's just say that a certain phrase that gets yelled at the host numerous times now out on the street is somehow going to make its way into the mainstream tomorrow.
Yeah, you know what it is, though. You know exactly what it is.
Now I know exactly what it is.
We're not gonna,
it's true.
Well, I don't think it is, but I'm going to have to prove that it's not. I think on Friday, it's basically what Duthie's telling us. So, yeah, I'm glad you saw that. We've been putting a lot of preparation into that. And I've noticed that Mike Lane and others are really excited for that particular bit. And I'm curious as to why they're so looking forward to that, but I think I know the answer, and that's all good. We're going to have fun. It's going to be a blast, buddy. We're doing this.
Was there a press release today, too? We got a couple of special guests. Has it been announced?
I don't believe so. The special, I didn't read through the whole thing. I probably should have.
Yeah, me neither, but we have an ex-Leaf, a recent ex-Leaf who's joining us on the show who I'm really excited about. I had breakfast with him yesterday, and big personality, not many teeth. And I think he's going to be terrific.
All right. Yeah, I'm quickly skimming through. I don't see his name. I don't think it's been revealed yet.
Okay.
So there you go.
We'll keep it down. But it's he's a...
Actually, no, it has been. Yeah, there you go. It's in the press release. Go ahead.
There you go. Wayne Simmons will be with us. Good Aurora boy.
Beautiful.
And, a Scarborough boy turned Aurora boy. And he's just... he's super keen. He's got tons of opinions on the Leafs and other teams. So... Bruce Boudreau's back, who just completely destroyed us last year, during one of the commercial breaks. So Gabby's back. We're going to have some fun.
Going to be awesome. 8 a.m. We'll be there Friday morning. Thank you, JD. We'll do it soon. We'll see you on Friday.
Guys, take it easy.
There he is, James Duthie, our host for TradeCentre. Leafs Bruins tomorrow night on TSN 2, right? JD will be there. Oh, you'll be on the panel tomorrow night.
Big 24 hours ahead tomorrow.
Big 24,
hours,
yeah.
You basically got to stay in the building. There was nothing worse than in the past. I've done this before. Trade deadline and then a double header.
Ooh.
Like an early 7 o'clock game and then a late game after 9 hours of sitting there. And then you got a double whammy.
Pete Rose, man. You're falling asleep. You're Pete Rose on the panel.
Yeah.
What do you
You're looking
yourself?
for features. You're looking
what do you
for
feel
features.
Yourself? What's the body? Put it in the body to keep yourself energized,
I'll tell you what, Struddy, I don't eat. What I eat now is all healthy, pal. Hazy B, you got a little taste of that today?
I saw it up close and personal. Oh. Very healthy, very impressive. Very healthy, very impressive. That's the truth. And like we We had lunch. There was a waitress down there that we knew, and she was very impressed. She was like, "Look at this guy! Wow, it's unbelievable. Everything's moving in the right direction." We're talking heads are moving on streets downtown, watching walk around because he looks good. He looks good, feels good, looks good, plays good. Yeah, exactly. But you'll see on Friday. Like Friday, it's basically, it's like. It's prison rules. Like, you just do whatever you got to do to survive.
You go take a
man.
leak and then smash a bag of Doritos in your face on the way back to the set.
Yeah.
That's all you got. That's all you got.
All right.
I'm talking about all the way to the top, yeah. Unjustifiably in a position that I'd rather not be in. But the cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
All right, Struddy, this is big for you, man. You're here. This gets played very, very... I would say, every month, maybe month and a half, we go to the O desk for an update on where he's at with the weight loss, the life coach, the muse. You can't...
Whenever it comes up, they play the music for me, Struddy. I'm on a big program. I'm going big places, pal.
Right. Since when? When did this life start?
November 1st.
Oh, wow. You're
1st.
into it.
Yeah. Deep into it, man. Committed to it. I saw it up close and personal. I've seen it. All right, do you want to give an update on numbers yet, or are we waiting like a month or two before... we hear the Macho Man, and then you're going to give us numbers on what we're talking about here? Because you and I were talking closed this afternoon, and I was very impressed with. I don't want to get into specific numbers, but I've dropped 30 plus, so we're going to keep moving. There you go. Let's keep moving, man. The cream rises to the top. I love it. All right, thanks to James Duthie. Gerry's percentages coming up. We got Darren Dreger still to come. Ryan Rishaug still to come. Lee Sabres tonight. Jason Strudwick's in here. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
You're going to want to hear this.
Gerry's percentages.
I don't love being commissioner as much as I used to. I actually love it even more.
That's the voice of a Hall of Famer.
Are you kidding? Have you been out drinking?
You're all pigeons. Filthy, filthy pigeons.
It's Gerry. Gerry.
All right, here we go. Gerry's percentages. Jason Strudwick. Struddy with us here playing Gerry's for the first time. And Gerry's is brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice cold beers. Always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. Struddy, I'm sure you've seen this before. Gerry is quite the character. He joins us weekly or bi-weekly. He comes in with takes. And then we go around the table and we play some percentage like that is likely for that take to actually come to fruition. Right? Pretty simple
Very
stuff.
simple stuff.
Gotcha.
Stupid, yet simple.
Stupid, yet simple. Basically the motto of this program. All right, you guys ready to hear from Gerry? Let's see what he's got this week.
Gerry's been refreshing his X account all day, and my head is spinning with all these crazy trades. Doesn't help that I've been listening to Struddy talk about the Edmonton Oilers for the last 90 minutes. But I've got takes, and they're spicy, so let's do this.
All right.
Fire them up.
They're
Fire them
spicy.
up.
Let's do it. What do we got?
Connor McDavid is on an absolute heater right now, so 100 assists is a lock. But Gerry thinks he's getting to 110.
Ooh, 110. So to put that into perspective, I believe only 3 players in NHL history have hit 100 assists in a season. Gretzky did it like 11 times or something.
Dude, just saying it is ridiculous.
Crazy. Yeah. Lemieux did it, and I believe Bobby Orr did it. So we're talking like the cream of the crop, like arguably the 3 greatest players of all time. And McDavid is on a serious pace to do it.
And all of them, Hayes, they seem like the dynamite primary one. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, not the garbage, dump it in the corner, and a guy. It's the unbelievable play, and then he feeds it to somebody for an empty net.
Last night being a perfect example. He assisted on both, and the winner was like outrageous. So he's got 76 assists right now, and the Oilers have 22 games left. So again, 100 seems like a lock. Like 24 assists in 22 games for this guy seems like child's work. But 110 is a different beast. Where you at, O?
110 assists. I'm always going to be on the positive of this. It's like 65%, because that's just what this guy does. As soon as you think it's going to be 100, he just takes it to the next level. How do you ever bet against him? I remember doing a quiz in November saying, don't kid yourself, because he was way back. way back in the scoring race, and Kucherov and McKinnon were in a different stratosphere, I'm like, this guy will be right there at the end, and don't be shocked if he wins it. I'm going to give him 65%.
All right.
Yeah. Should be more.
It's a lot of assists, man. A lot of assists. But, yeah, he's a beast. Go ahead, Struddy. What do you got?
I see the Connor McDavid, he picks up steam as he heads into the playoffs. So I'm going to put it a little bit higher, more like my grade 10 chemistry level at 80%. I'm putting 80% for 97 to get to 110.
Wow, you're telling me you got 80% in chemistry in grade 10 at 10, Struddy?
Well, it's actually 84%, but I didn't want to make anyone feel bad.
Yeah,
so
a bell curve for us because we're two buffoons in Toronto. Is that what you're saying, Struddy? Chemistry was not a high point for me. I remember I just passed like 51% because I think they felt they had to. But I'm going to be, I mean, listen, if 110 means 2 assists a game, right? Like you do the math, that would be 44 assists in 22 games. Math, grade 10, not much better. But still, I can do that math. I mean, it's tough to bet against him because this is a guy that can have 4 or 5 assists in a game, and then all of a sudden the math starts moving in his direction. And I know he keeps saying the right things all year, McDavid has. Like, I don't care about the statistics. I don't care about the awards. It's just about winning. This is one, though, where it's like, this is going to be in the back of his mind now. You know he's thinking about it. Like, you can get to 100 assists or 100 plus. I just wonder if once he gets to 100, is there load management at the end of the year? Does he not play as much?
Good point.
So I'm going to say, I'm actually going to say 49%, just into the minority. It's basically a coin flip. 1% towards it not happening, Struddy, because I'm really good at playing this game, and you'll learn that as we move forward. I'm at 49%.
The Maple Leafs are talking a big game about protecting assets, but Gerry's not buying it because the Leafs will trade their 2024 first-round pick by the deadline. Hazy B might be saying they're going all in.
You're right. I would consider that all in. That's what everyone else keeps telling me. All in, all in, all in.
Let me just ask this before I get to my answer. Mm-hmm. Is this just fans in their basement? Parayko seems to be trending like all the time. Mm-hmm. Is that just fans saying, go get Parayko, that's why it's trending? Or is that...
to my knowledge, that's what it is. That doesn't mean that there aren't reputable people bringing it up that I haven't seen. I mean, I'm sure it started somewhere with a Q&A or a tweet. Hey, if St. Louis is thinking about moving it, maybe Parayko would make sense. Well, of course. I think that's probably true. I think that would be a good pickup by the Leafs. But why would it only be the Leafs in on Parayko? If he's available, I'm sure a lot of teams would be calling on him. But anyway, I mean, Gerry's saying the first rounder between now and Friday, 3 p.m. will be traded by the Leafs. Are you buying 10%, that or not?
I'm 10% on that.
Wow.
Because I think they would have done it by now because there's been a lot of guys out there that it would have taken a first to get and they would have pulled the trigger on it. Obviously, there are different options that become available. I just don't think they're doing it this year. 10%.
I got to agree with you. I'm not sure who the guy is. Like, I think the Leafs need D. I think Lyubushkin is a nice pickup. I'm not sure that he is the answer, but it's a nice pickup. So who's the guy? Who's the left or probably a right shot D that they want and they need? And then Parayko, I think, that's a big deal. Like the contract and all the stuff they have to make. I'm not sure they can get that done. So I'll go. I think the same. 10%, 15%. I just don't think there's just not the guy out there that makes it as easy to do.
Right. I think, Tanev was a guy that they were looking at. I don't know if they put that on the table, but it doesn't matter. It's a moot point now. He's in Dallas. Hanifin, I just don't see it. I don't think the Leafs are going. I could be wrong. We'll see what happens. But exactly, like after that, of the guys that we believe are available now, there's not a lot of them left. I mean, Walker got traded to Colorado. Sealer re-signed in Philly. Tanev's gone. Again, if they're not in on Hanifin, where is this first-round pick going? Where is it being traded? Unless they're, again, this is why I'll go a little bit higher than you guys. I'll say 33%, a 1 in 3 chance. Maybe David Savard in Montreal is available. Parayko seems way too complicated. That's a summer trade. That's a deal you make in the summer.
Don't say I hate that.
That's a summer trade.
Dude, you know how many times we've been lied to, and it's like this trade. Wait till the summer. The draft will be bonkers. Walk out of the draft, nothing happens. So stop saying that. That's a summer trade. I hear you.
It's a lot of Wolf tickets in the summer as well. But that's another thing you got to consider with. I get it. We're in the grind right now. The Leafs have built up to this point. They're going to the playoffs. They're a good team. the idea of using your assets now to try to improve it. But come the summer, you need assets to make trades too if you want to make maneuvers in the summer. If you want to reshape your defense and you don't think you could do it at the trade deadline, save that pick and trade it at the draft, right? When all 32 teams are available for moving and shaking at that point. Adam Larson's a guy that comes up. Parayko comes up. Savard, like there are guys that they would trade a first rounder for that would be worthy of that. So I'll say 33%, but I'm with you guys. I think I'm in the minority on this.
Adam Henrique, a.k.a. Rico, is a sneaky pick by Kenny Holland. And it leads me to believe Draisaitl and McDavid will play on the same line for the majority of the playoffs.
All right, the majority, so 51% of their 5-on-5 shifts, Draisaitl, McDavid on the same line.
I'm going to say 15%. Because I don't think... You saw it last year. I believe they were playing on different lines, and they were both destroying the Los Angeles Kings, and they were terrorizing the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas ultimately beat them, but I think that's the way you win, where you throw both of them out there dialed in on different lines. There are going to be certain circumstances in games where you throw them together for a couple shifts, a period. But the idea would be to throw those two guys up and have nightmare matchups for the opposition.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think what will happen, they'll split them up, and then Nugent Hopkins will be a winger. And then you've got Henrique at the center.
Where's your percentage, Struddy? Come on, man.
Give the percentage.
You're a rookie. Rookie move.
The percentage.
Rookie tax.
I'll say 35%.
Yeah.
So I think that just have those guys. I think you want to have those guys set up on different lines. And Henrique now completes the third center. And then McLeod and Nugent Hopkins are moonlighting as left wingers or right wingers.
Yeah,
all through.
That makes sense. I mean, that I think is where they're probably going to start. McDavid, Draisaitl, Henrique, like you said, where you got McLeod, you've got Nugent Hopkins, who are flexible, but I am going to go a little bit higher than you because I also picture a scenario where they lose the first two games for some reason, and the play is always, it doesn't matter who the coach is, Knobloch, it doesn't matter. It's like, we got to go back to these guys together. And if there is a world where we're living in a month and a half where that happens, they lose game one, they lose game two, they have an injury or whatever, Draisaitl hasn't had a great year, right? Like by his standards. By his standards, it's been somewhat inconsistent. I do wonder if he's just bored and wants to get to the playoffs. And what we saw last night is like, all right, let's get cooking here. We're into March. I wouldn't be shocked at all if he took off between now and the end of the year. He's still a rock star. But I'll say 50%. I'm going to be right on the nose. 50%. Every coach that goes through there, they say the same thing. Struddy, you know this. It's always better if they play a part. I want to load up two lines. I want to have depth. And then it's like one thing goes wrong.
And it's like,
put them together. And you can't argue against it with the way those two play when they're on a line together. You throw Hyman on there, that's the best line in hockey immediately. Like immediately. Draisaitl, McDavid, Hyman's the best line in the league.
Not even close.
Yeah. And it's very, very enticing. So I'll say 50%.
You guys have talked a lot about Sidney Crosby's future. Well, let's hear it. I'm calling he plays NHL games for a team not named the Pittsburgh Penguins before he retires.
All right. Here we go.
I'm going to say 100%.
Wow.
100%.
100%. Then it's got to be this summer, don't you think? Like, what's the point of him hanging around? You
can't have an all-time great stick around for a rebuild and miss the playoffs the next 3 or 4 years to end his career. And I guarantee you he's loyal to Pittsburgh. He loves Pittsburgh. He won't want to do it. And it might take for the summertime to come around for him to think about it and sneak in a few combos with Nate the Great on the dock out there in Nova Scotia.
Yeah. What about Marchand in Boston, man? I mentioned Boston a month ago. Everyone talks about Colorado. Why not Boston? Same colors, basically. Just go right up to Boston. You're going to be the number one center immediately playing with whoever you want to play with.
I just think he could have that Raymond Bourque type scenario where he goes somewhere else and finishes it off somewhere else. Gretzky played somewhere else,
Gretzky played everywhere, basically.
Yeah, I know. It's like everyone's like,
around.
oh, Sidney Crosby can't. Yeah, you can. Everybody goes somewhere else. I mean, there's the chosen few that stick around for 20 years with one team, but people trade uniforms. They go somewhere else. And by the way, who the hell wants to lose for the next 4 years?
Well, exactly. What do you got, Struddy?
0%.
Wow.
I believe that he has won his championships. He's won his individual titles, and he probably wants to be part of the force that helps to
that's a slap in the face to sit the kid, way. Jason, because he's a competitor.
I love Sid.
You're saying he doesn't want to win.
I'm not saying he doesn't want to win, but I think he feels responsible to launch the next group of players that take
responsible. He's not a scout.
I know, but he's been there a long time. I think he bleeds Penguin colors. I really think that he will. I think he'll stay. I think he's going to stay there.
Kind of like what Lemieux represented. Is that what you're suggesting? Like when Sid showed up, Mario was still there, and it was kind of, hey, hang out with me for a year or two and then move on. Problem is, they're not bad enough to the point where they, like when they got Sid, they were a disaster. It was kind of lucky. Like Mario's still kind of hanging around. Pittsburgh, like unless they completely shed everyone and commit to completely blowing up, which I don't think they will, and I don't think they can with Sid. I just see them missing the playoffs like for 2 or 3 years in a row and finishing with like 80 points, 84 points, and picking 10th. You know, and that's, I'm going to say 100%. And a part of it is just I want it to happen. I don't think it's dawned on him yet, and I understand why it hasn't. They just missed the playoffs last year. Just missed it. That was the first year he had missed, I believe, since his rookie season. The guy was in the playoffs every single year of his career, and they barely missed it, and they screwed that up. This year, it hasn't dawned on him yet. Like, this is bad, and it's, you know, they won last night, and they're still technically in the race, and anything's possible. So I understand why at this point he's not willing to commit to that. I think you get to the summer, you see Gensel leave, you see other good players, veteran players that I'm sure he's close with, they move on. Dubas probably tries to sell him on the idea that this is going to take 2 or 3 years. Once it finally sinks in, that's when he'll have an answer. And if at that point he's like, I'm still committed, then Struddy, you'll be right. Then he's not going anywhere. He'll stay there until he's 40, 41, retire. Doesn't matter. Worst team in the league, whatever. But if he gets to the summer and he's like, all right, it's finally actually, you know, sinking in, we're bad, like, and we're going to tear this thing down to an extent, that's where I think the light might go off. And he's like, I don't want to be a part of it. And no one's going to disrespect him for that. No one in Pittsburgh, like, you know, they've had such an unbelievable run. This guy's been a Penguin for 19 years. Prior to that, they had Mario Lemieux. Like that's Favre into Rodgers stuff, right? Like that's Montana into Young. Like they've just had an unbelievable 40 years. And I think everyone should salute him if he ends up walking out. All right, there you go. Gerry's percentages. I think we got a Gerry's After Dark. We got a couple of Gerry's After Dark. So we'll get to that in the next hour. That's very exciting stuff, Struddy. We'll tell you more about it. Good stuff. Good stuff. I think the inaugural, you know, trek down Gerry's lane was a very, very positive one, very successful one. Gerry's percentages brought to you by Boston Pizza, Canada's favorite sports bar. From tip-offs to tie bites and puck drops to pizza, BP's elite lineup of apps, wings, and ice cold beers, always dialed in for game time. Hustle into your local BP tonight. Darren Dreger, our TSN Hockey Insider, on a lot of action in the NHL today. That's in about 20 minutes. Ryan Rashog coming up, our buddy from Edmonton. He'll join us in about 45 minutes as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, every day we announce a current or former Maple Leaf player. By the end of the week, we have a full lineup. And this week, we're giving away tickets to see the Leafs take on the Hurricanes March 16th. Plus, we're throwing in a $250 Vanilla Visa prepaid card. Vanilla Visa prepaid cards are available for purchase at Petro-Canada. Today's player of the day is Thomas Kaberle. Thomas Kaberle is your player of the day.
Fantastic guy and teammate.
There you go. And good golfer, too, right? We saw him up at the Nash on the range.
Awful.
Hacking and whacking. He's working on his game. He looked good out there. He was doing his thing.
He's like a 16 handicap.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. He's like a 10.
He's got to be a single digit, man. He's got to be.
If he's not where he plays, he'll have a hard time out there.
Yeah, that place will get you, man. We played it last year. This is course in Toronto, the National Struddy. It's a beautiful course, unbelievable, and it's really tough. And I thought I played really well, and I shot like an 86. I played great. Like for me, I played really, really well.
Right.
And shot 86. And then the next time I played it, thought I played really well, shot a 91. Again, I'm like, I played great. I shot a 91. But it gets you, man. It's a tough track, but we're getting close. We're like a month away from go time here. It's beautiful weather here in the Toronto area all week, and got Leaf Sabres tonight. So These are.
Is that from the white tees, the red tees? What tee box?
I can't recall which tees, but it was a decent.
No, they were grown ass man
forward tees.
That's
like,
right.
No.
Forward tees.
No.
It was I know exactly what it was. It was the hybrid long tees.
Okay.
That's what the tee was.
Right.
Hazy, that's what
That's
it was.
right. About 6,800, 6,700 yards, something like that.
How many mullies?
No, none.
Dude,
None.
you can't pull out a mulligan only off the first tee.
Maybe a breakfast ball. Maybe. But yeah, mullies, man, you say mully at a place like the National, you're in big trouble.
Buddy, you rock the gold bracelet on your wrist, you're taking mulligans. I guarantee it.
Shuddy, I've always wanted to ask you this. Why does Noodles, we've got about 30 seconds here, why does Noodles not play golf or anything outdoor? Like, what is that?
Simple answer. He's not athletic.
That's true. He's a goalie. He he doesn't know how to swim. He doesn't like to swim. He doesn't like to be around water. He doesn't like the sun.
Yeah.
He's a vampire.
So does he just belly up at bars and get crushed wherever he what else do you do?
He texts. He goes to a beautiful resort with his family. He drops them off and he goes back to his room and texts. He could do that at anywhere.
Yeah.
He could do that in Saskatoon. He doesn't have to be in a beautiful place in Mexico to do
He
that.
would vacation in Saskatoon and be just as happy.
Same thing. It's just a hotel lobby or wherever he goes.
Give me a hotel. Give me some plumbing. Give me some electricity. Give me some Wi-Fi. And he's calling people. And
he probably watches old
relaxed.
NHL games from the last year, like just to catch up on things.
Right.
6 Dr. Peppers, a bag of chips, and some ice, and he's happy.
He's set, man. He's an easy man to please. That's why we love him. All right, final hour coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.